Welcome, folks, to Happy Hour Hoops. It is Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, depending where you are. Selection Sunday. It's a national holiday, so I had to bring in the two smartest college basketball folks out there. TV dinner, Troy, some guy named Steve. Both great nicknames. I've told Troy how much I love the TV dinner nickname right away. And some guy named Steve, always a recurring guest here and Troy's first time. So thank you both for joining on this Selection Sunday. How are we feeling? I mean, it's sunny out. I think it's sunny out there. It's sunny out here at least. Looks like a nice day. It feels good. Little sun, looks nice, whatever. Stevie, how are you feeling on this Selection Sunday?
I'm feeling great, man. I can't wait. And this is one of my favorite days of the year when we finally get the bracket, when we can finally go through. However you want to fill it out, whether you want to flip a coin, whether you want to actually go through, look at numbers, whether you want to go with your gut, we finally get a bracket today. It's been a crazy couple of weeks for conference tournaments. I think Troy and I did a great job this week spreading awareness for how great these conference tournaments are. They're fantastic.
I agree.
And now we got the real thing coming up. Less than a week away, we get the bracket today. The tournament's going around local places, Buffalo and Pittsburgh. I may be going to both locations. I can't wait, man. I am very excited. This is like you said, a national holiday for me. I'm like a kid on Christmas. I can't wait.
Yeah, same for me, man. It is a national holiday. Should be.
It should be, honestly. Actually, today, like it's a Sunday. We don't need today the national holiday. Thursday and Friday should really be national holidays because it's gonna be a blast. I can't wait for like the full tournament experience. Like this is like the real full tournament experience we've got since 2019. I mean, really, like full packed places. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fun, and I think this is gonna be. I don't know about you guys. From my impressions, though, and I think that you guys will be aligned with this. I feel like this bracket is very deep, like right through the middle, and there's gonna be some very exciting 30 round of 32 Sweet 16 matchups. I feel like those are going to be some crazy games, but let's get into it. We'll start off. We're about to go into Championship Sunday. Most of the conferences and the auto bids have been handed out. So Stevie, what are your biggest takeaways from Championship week so far?
I think there are a couple teams that really, really impressed me. I know we talked about how last year we said Baylor and Gonzaga were that tier one of teams, and then there was a big gap. And this year there really weren't a couple teams that stood out. There's a lot of great teams. And I don't think there's a separate tier right now, but I got to say Arizona, the way they played in the Pac-12 tournament, Kansas, the way they played in the Big 12 tournament, and then Tennessee in the SEC tournament, those three teams really stood out to me. The way Tennessee kind of dominated Kentucky, didn't give them any good open shots. Arizona's offense, with their starting point guard out for injury in the championship game against UCLA, and then they had their other 2 point guards, main ball handlers, in foul trouble early in the game. That run they won on in the second half, the way they played defense at the end, blocking almost every shot UCLA was taking, really, really impressive. In Kansas too, man, McCormick. I've said this every time this year. It is a big tournament this year. You got to have an elite big this year. There's so many elite teams that have that. Kansas McCormick, he's 6'10", which is usually a big dude, but that's a little shorter than a lot of these 7-footers this year. He plays like he's 7'5". He plays like Shaq. I mean, Kansas, Arizona, and Tennessee really stood out to me as teams that are going to threaten to make a deep run. And I was kind of down on Arizona at the start of the year because I'm always down to Arizona, right? You got the new coach, the assistant from Gonzaga coming in. Arizona always seems to choke coming in the tournament. I'm like, how's it going to work with 3 7-footers? They don't really have a true point guard. I'll tell you what, they're making it work, and they might be the most fun team to watch. This is a team. They have backdoor cuts. They pass everybody open. They average almost 20 assists a game. They're blocking everything down low. And Mathurin is that dude. He has raised his draft stock for the NBA significantly, and it's only going to go higher. He's taking games over. I'm going to say it right now. I think Arizona is the clear best team in the country. I could be wrong. I know Gonzaga. Everyone doubts him. I like Gonzaga. I'm a Gonzaga guy, but I really do think Arizona is the team to beat heading into the tournament.
Wise words from Stevie. Troy, how did you feel about Championship Week? What were your thoughts? Biggest thoughts, takeaways?
Stevie hit the nail right on the head. I mean, it's Arizona. They were not dominant last night, but they're super athletic. That's what I get from that. They're super athletic. And Ben Mathurin, I mean, he's shown up this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Koloko, he's a rim protector. That guy's like you said yesterday, Stevie. He's everything you want. It's everything you want going into the tournament. And you do need that dominant big this year. You look at every single team, they have that 7-footer. You know,
yeah. Every team, and I think that's the thing, like across all of basketball, is these guys like we're so much better at developing basketball players all over the world. So we're getting these athletes that are just better athletes that have ever played the game of basketball, and you're seeing it manifest in college basketball with some of these kids. And some of them are such like raw NBA prospects that you like can't even possibly imagine them. But when you're playing, you know, in D1, you're just that raw athleticism can be enough to have swing games like this. And there's a lot of those kids this year. I do like that you mentioned though, UCLA did put up a good fight last night, but I was very impressed with Arizona winning a big game like that. Like UCLA is obviously a team that was there last year. They're battle tested. And like you said, Arizona in the past, like these are games where you wouldn't expect them to win, or they would somehow blow it in some fashion under Sean Miller and everything else. Maybe this is a different energy. This is a different team. We're just putting like the Arizona thoughts into our head and everything, but it's actually like a different thing going on. And it looked like they looked composed all week. Honestly, they looked really composed. Yes. Even in that scare against Stanford, they still were battling, and I didn't think they were playing bad. I think Stanford was just playing a hell of a game too. I think they had a good game plan for them. And you expect those games in a conference tournament too. Like there's always going to be one game that's
what you're going to get in March.
Yeah.
And I think we saw a lot of that throughout all the conferences, right? The top seeds were struggling early on, or even for entire games against these lower teams. I mean, we saw the miraculous run Texas A&M has been going on in the SEC. Virginia Tech, they didn't just beat North Carolina and Duke. They outplayed them significantly in both those games. And not only Duke there against Virginia Tech, Miami gave Duke a tough game. Syracuse gave Duke a tough game. You'll just see that in March. The teams will play up to a level, and it only takes a couple hot shooting teams. Iowa, another perfect example with Troy. I remember I was on DDZ, I think a couple weeks ago. We were talking about Iowa, Michigan, and I was leaning Michigan because I'm like, they need that win. And Troy goes, well, Iowa, they can score the basketball. It was a simple statement, but it couldn't have been more accurate. Iowa has turned into one of the most explosive offensive teams. They can score the basketball well, and that's what you need to do in March. They get hot. The shot Bohannon made, the bank three to win against Indiana. It's been incredible to see all these teams kind of pop up, because we have the top tier teams, but like I said, after probably the first 4 or 5, there's about 20 teams you could put in any order. And that's terrifying coming into a tournament where you have seeds 2 through 6 of teams where, any of these could make the Final Four, or any of them could lose in the first couple of rounds. And that's what I love about this year. It's really unique. I think we do agree, though, at the end, you're going to have some form of a dominant big, because there's just too many elite teams that have one. But outside of that, guys, I really think it's a very balanced field after maybe the top 4 or 5 teams, where anything can really happen with any of these teams. They all have their flaws. They all have their strengths. It's going to be a really fun year to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's what separates Arizona from everyone else. I think that they have the least amount of flaws as a team.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, too, and I think you can agree with me on this, Troy, is Arizona, they have 3 7-footers. They have 3 big men. So you get one in foul trouble, not like on other teams, where their big man gets in foul trouble, it's kind of panic. A guy who has to only play 15 minutes come in. Not the case with Arizona. They can throw any of those bigs in, and you saw them do it against UCLA last night. And not only that, too, their top point guard was out. Their other 2 top guards got in the foul trouble. They didn't really have a true ball handler, and Mathurin just took over. He just took over the game. This Arizona team, to me, I think is a big mismatch for a lot of teams, because they have size, they have length at not only their forwards, but their guard position as well. They can score the ball. They play really, really fast, which I like, because teams that play fast will make other teams uncomfortable when they're not used to playing at that pace.
That's true.
They can full court press you. They can play back on defense. And we saw at the end of the game against UCLA, they made open shots, but the reason Arizona won that game was their defense. Koloko had, it seemed like 5 blocks in the final 2 minutes. I mean, and their guards can get blocks. I really like this Arizona team. They kind of fully convinced me through the Pac-12 tournament. This is a team that can win 6 consecutive games and win the tournament. But I'll tell you what, there are a lot of good teams besides Arizona, and it only just takes a hot shooting team. You know, that's really all it takes.
And that's the one thing I was going to say about you guys have both made great points about the different amount of bigs and everything that are here. But this is also like one of these teams with one of these outstanding bigs who's even could be playing in the game or whatever, is just going to get blown out of the water by some team that shoots like 68% from 3. Like it's going to happen. We don't know where, we don't know who it's going to be. That's the beauty of not only just like March Madness, but modern basketball, is that those threes start falling and it's just different. And you get that energy in an arena in the, a round of 32 game where you hit 3 threes in a row, 4 threes in a row, whatever. It's hard to the swings are the biggest thing. The momentum swings are the biggest things you can't account for. And I think that's one of the things I'm going to be looking for like as my favorites, but also as like the sleeper teams too, are who are the most consistent shooting teams, especially from deep, but free throws as well, because free throws, you don't want to get killed betting on a team that's going to go 55% from the line, things like that. Like, and we've seen that go down too. I mean, Bonaventure the other day. I mean, that's just like worst case scenario. Yeah. Worst case scenario.
82% so those are free throw shooter. 82% misses both and then misses the layup. And that's part of the nerves too. Like that's why I like to look at experience as well, because you want to have guys who are used to that. Because we have fans back now. I don't think people understand that we're going to have like sold out arenas this year. Yeah, it's going to get crazy. Yeah. Players are going to have to get used to playing in front of these giant crowds, especially these smaller mid-major programs. And you brought it up, Jake, a lot of like good shooting teams, a lot of these auto bids from these mid-major conferences are explosive offenses this year. There are a lot of good offenses out of these teams. I can't wait to really see what happens with them, but I'm looking down the list right now. You got teams like Vermont, New Mexico State, South Dakota State. You got, I think, Longwood. Longwood can score. I know they're going to probably be like a 15 seed, but they can score the ball. I mean, there are a ton of good offensive teams. It's going to be pretty crazy. And if you're looking at the odds right now that we have pulled up, Villanova, they are undersized this year. Like I said, they were built kind of like Baylor was last year, stretch forwards and elite guard play. But at plus 2,500, Villanova is a team that can shoot lights out. We saw Colin Gillespie kind of just win the game against Creighton for them with some incredible threes. Villanova is one of those teams that they have the guards that can go 15 for 25 from 3 in a game. And they have, not the biggest guys. They're like 6'9" or they're forwards, but they play big and they're stubborn. Villanova is stubborn. They will not go double team a 7-footer. They're going to keep their guy on there. They're going to play on ball defense with you. They're a sneaky team as well, because if they get hot, they can beat anybody.
I love that. What about you, Troy? Well, you on this list? Anybody that's off this list, whatever? Because I can only fit 200 characters on this thing, but there's teams with lower odds that, I mean, like Alabama is plus 8,000. Would you be surprised if Alabama is in the Elite 8 all of a sudden? Like they could get hot too. There's teams down at you would be okay. Well, that's
fair. They're too inconsistent.
we were.
But
just
that's the thing. If it's the matchups of 3 games, I feel like there's a lot of these teams that the bracket, the seeding. That's the one thing I wanted to say, and again to get to you, Troy, with your favorites and everything else. I feel like the seeding is going to be so important this year, just because of how close all these 3, 4, 5, 6 seeds, like where those teams are going to get ranked by. Like someone's going to get screwed. Like one of these teams should be a 3 or a 2, is going to be a 5 or a 6 and get some horrible matchup with like South Dakota State or something like that in the first round, what they should not have to deal with.
Last year Illinois was a 1 seed and they had to play Loyola Chicago as an 8 seed in the second round. It wasn't an 8 seed.
Wasn't an 8 seed, and it's also a team that they purposely don't schedule to play. Exactly. Like all those things.
Right. Yeah. No, but we were just talking about how hot shooting can lead to going to the Final Four, winning a national championship. Purdue, they're the number 1 offensive efficient team in the nation.
Yes,
but that defense, God, I can't bet on them. But if they can get hot, yeah.
I was just gonna say, Stevie, Troy, you don't know as much about my Purdue slander. I really don't like. I'm not a Matt Painter guy. That's really what it comes down to. Don't trust them. But Jaden Ivey that dude just might win me over because the kid is just incredible. Like that, the shots that he can, not even just the shots that he can get off, but like, I'm not saying that he is Ja Morant-esque, but the way he splits a double team, like you can't really affect him on the perimeter. He's just going to get around you and get to where he wants to go. And that's the only guy he's not as explosive as Ja, obviously, but I think he's just as smart and knows his angles and knows exactly what he's such a smart offensive player. That shot yesterday, that circus layup where he's laying like flat in the air and somehow gets it up. Like that's only something that's a special ability that you can do. And we've seen those kids, especially in brackets like this, where there's not a clear favorite. Sometimes it's just those kids that are just the best. They're just going to will your team to win every game. I look back at like Kemba or something like that. Like one of those guards that can just fill it up. I think Ivy is definitely the number one candidate for that.
He can definitely be that name this March where everyone in the nation will know him by April 5th or 7th, whenever the national championship game is. Right. But if that team gets hot from three, there's no stopping them.
Well, they have so many options on offense. They have the inside big man with Edey. He's 7'4". Not many teams have a guy who can even come close to matching up with them. And he's not even their best big. They have Williams.
He wasn't even playing yesterday.
A better overall big down low. They've got one of the best 3-point shooters in Stefanovic. And now you got Jaden Ivey, who is, I like picking teams. When it comes to March Madness and picking a team to win 6 straight games, I think you have to have some type of superstar. Doesn't have to be the best player in the world, but it has to be some type of guy who can take the game over if your team's getting in foul trouble or if guys are going cold who aren't normally cold. A guy who the defense has to go, we got to focus on him. We got to put 2 guys on him, make other players get open. Jaden Ivey is that guy for Purdue. Purdue hasn't had that type of player. I know they had Carson Edwards who could hit threes, but he really wasn't a complete package of I can take a game over in every way possible. Jaden Ivey can do that. He can shoot lights out. He can drive on you. He can facilitate the offense. That's a big reason why I think I can look past a little bit of Purdue's like defensive inefficiencies to a point. Now, I'm going to have to look at their exact roads, certain matchups. But Purdue, I think that's a great point, Troy. Their offense is so elite, and then they have that star power with Jaden Ivey. It's a team where normally if I see a team where their defense is right around 100 in adjusted defensive efficiency, I'm not touching them. But I can look past that a little bit with Purdue. And so far, it's worked in the Big Ten tournament. They got one more game against Iowa today, the final game before the brackets come out. It'll be interesting to see because Iowa's just like Purdue. Great offense. Defense, it's improved this year, but it's never been their strong suit. But I'll tell you what, if Purdue can keep overcoming that,
I'm so mad at Iowa for ruining the Purdue-Indiana Big Ten championship we could have had in Indianapolis. Like that would have just been legendary. But I'm with you on everything Purdue-wise, guys. I still don't. It's gonna take me a lot to write down Purdue into that bracket, but this might be the year that I actually get to do it. All right, so Troy, Stevie, I'm gonna ask you that we've got 3 blue bloods on this list here. We've got UCLA, Duke, Kentucky, all with different odds. So Troy, I'll start with you, then we'll go to Stevie. Out of those 3, rank them 1 to 3. Who do you like the most to least there? And I think we're all going to have the same answer of who we like the least. That's part of this exercise that I want to find out. But go ahead, let's see what you.
Are we including Kansas in there too?
Oh yeah, we should. I didn't. Sorry, I was not thinking of Kansas. Yeah. Kansas. Yeah, all 4.
Man. So. It's difficult because Kansas, I mean, Kentucky went to Kansas and absolutely just demolished them. But I don't know. I've always kind of been a Kansas guy. Like it's one of those teams that I like seeing them win. So when I fill out my bracket, I kind of lean towards Kansas, and it's always usually a good pick. They're always in the Sweet 16 at least. I don't know. Right now though, I would have to put Kentucky over them, and it's not only because they they demolished Kansas in Kansas. But I mean, that team, it's all overall a good team. I would go Kentucky, Kansas, and I think the gap between Duke and UCLA is a little closer than people think.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, UCLA, obviously, they made that run last year.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, they barely snuck in the tournament, too. So going into this year, I was kind of suspect on them. I was like, I mean, they barely made the tournament. They lost to Oregon State in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament last year. Then they were a bubble team. And Oregon State, it's just a little side note, Oregon State won this is called Crazy Marches. Oregon State won the Pac-12 tournament last year. Did they go to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8? I can't remember. One of them.
I think it was Sweet 16. It was one of them.
Yeah, one of them. They made it to the second weekend at least. And I'm pretty sure they had 3 wins this year.
Yeah, 3-27. I want to say they were terrible.
That's like extreme, but that's the shit you can see in March.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
But back, I think the gap between Duke and UCLA is a little closer than people would think. Duke is a really good team. They have that star power with Paolo Banchero. They have a pretty good big with Williams, but UCLA they're a pretty good team. We saw it last night, staying with Arizona. So I'd rank them Kansas, Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, UCLA.
Okay, what about you, Stevie?
I'm similar. Kentucky's definitely my number one. I know they didn't look great against Tennessee yesterday. I completely understand that. But you got to see, Tshiebwe was in foul trouble. He barely played in the first half, and then he got fouls early in the second half. I mean, he barely played that game. They almost came back, and they were 2 of 20 from three-point range. Kentucky's a good shooting team. They're not going to go 2 of 20 from three-point range every day, and they brought that game back a little bit, made it close, gave themselves a chance to, have a comeback. Tennessee ended up winning. But even though they lost, I still wasn't worried about Kentucky from that game. They're still my number one. Ty Washington, one of the most experienced young guards I've ever seen. He does not look like a young guard. He looks like he's been in the league for 5-6 years. I like this Kentucky team a lot. I think they're one of the best defensive teams, and they have so many weapons on offense. They're going to be my number one here. I'm going Kansas at number 2. Kansas a little smaller than these other elite teams, but like I said, McCormick plays big. I like Ochai Agbaji a lot, and they got some good shooters around him as well. Kansas' defense is sometimes their weaker point, but their offense, once again, they can beat you in a number of ways. I'm going to go UCLA over Duke for the sole reason here. I know Duke it's the storybook ending for Coach K, right? Cut down the nets in his final season. I think it's going to be a very public pick, especially if Duke gets a 2 or a 3 seed.
Very true.
What? Yeah, right? Yeah, it's his last season. We didn't hear that at all. But I think the problem with Duke and my biggest issue with them is the ACC was really, really down here this year. And Duke, They played well in the ACC. They were the regular season champs, and they got to the ACC finals. But they haven't been as battle-tested as some of these other teams. Really, the only teams that scared me in the ACC in terms of I think they can make a run was North Carolina. And then Virginia Tech, they had the miraculous run to win the ACC. But Virginia Tech was a bubble team before they won the ACC. It wasn't like they were a world beater. Miami's a solid team, but they gave Duke a good game, a good challenge in the games they faced off with them this year. So I don't think Duke's as battle-tested. I think the big X factor for Duke is Wendell Moore Jr. It always seems like, they have some stars. Banchero's great. Williams is great. But when they need someone to not just take over the game, but just do the right things, not make mistakes, it's Wendell Moore Jr. And that will give me a little bit of hope that Duke can make somewhat of a run. But UCLA, they brought back basically the same team as last year. I know their odds. I think they're plus 2,500 now. And, they got maybe a little lucky last year. But I'll tell you what, man, they can score the basketball. And Arizona, even though they beat them in the Pac-12 championship, UCLA was making open shots. They were not missing open shots. And Arizona is not an easy team to put 75 points up against. Not at all. UCLA, they can make open shots. Tiger Campbell is he's just a beast. That man is awesome. And Jaquez, he can make any open shot there is. I like UCLA a lot. I think the odds are pretty good on them. Their size, a little bit of a concern, but you just got to see the road for them. I like UCLA. I think they have the experience. They brought basically the whole team back. I'll put them a slight edge over Duke, but I do agree with Troy. Those teams are very close. I would say Kansas and Kentucky are kind of in tier 1 of those 4, and then I put Duke, UCLA tier 2.
I'm in full agreement with that. I think you guys convinced me Kentucky over Kansas, but Agbaji is definitely in the same vein as Ivy for me, as one of those guys that could just take over and take over this tournament completely. Duke is definitely my 4th place team, though. I think, and I was always been, I growing up was like a Duke fan. I'm not really a Duke fan anymore. So like this Coach K season has been like a little weird because like a lot of good Duke basketball memories, but I really haven't been involved. And I honestly think you guys said storybook ending. Obviously, for Duke fans, the storybook ending is win the national title. But isn't the storybook ending for college basketball for them to get like upset in the 15-2 game by Bryant or something? Like that's what we really want.
For me, are you kidding me?
So that's what we want to happen. And this team feels like they are ripe for like one of those bad matchups with, like you guys are saying, one of those high-paced teams that just starts hitting threes or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really liked what I've seen from Duke. You know, they had the big game against UNC, didn't really show up for that. And didn't really show up any of these ACC tournament games. I mean, like every game it was more of a battle than it should have been. Every game. True. I think Virginia Tech is very good though, and they were lower seeded in that conference, but definitely still one of the better teams in the ACC this year. But still, Duke should be the ACC champions today. They shouldn't be having to, get an at-large bid or anything like that. And that's the difference. I agree with your tiers though, because I think UCLA, on the other hand, obviously this is a similar group to who was already in the Final Four last year, battle tested. They've won big games this year. I just put them ahead of Duke just for that.
Yeah. How amazing would it be? Bryant knocks off Duke. Peter Kiss waves Coach K goodbye.
Oh, dude,
how amazing would that be?
I know we'll probably get to this next week once the bracket comes out, but I know Troy and I are both big Bryant fans. Peter Kiss is that one of those guys who you haven't really heard of him before this week, and you probably haven't heard of him if you weren't paying attention to the conference tournaments. Yep. Who can take a game over? That guy's a walking bucket, and he has the confidence too. He's got the swagger, and that's something I want to see. That's why I picked Oral Roberts last year. They had confidence. They thought they could beat you. They thought they were better than you. Peter Kiss and Bryant, I'll tell you what, that team, they'll probably be a 15 seed. They have the confidence of we can beat anybody in this tournament, and that's what I like to see with these crazy upsets. Those are the type of teams I like to go for. They're not happy to be here. They want to win.
And I believe they had they're 6th or 7th in the country in adjusted pace, like something like that. When I was checking the other day when they had in their championship game, it's something crazy like that. And those are the teams right now those are teams you want to go with, like everything you just said. All right. So Troy, any other thoughts on any of these teams we haven't touched on? We haven't really talked. I mean, we talked Gonzaga a little bit. I think that we know what we're going to get, like to see it there. Tennessee, Baylor, Auburn. I don't trust Auburn at all. I don't know about that, but
I don't trust Auburn. Auburn is one of those teams that I would not be surprised if they got knocked out in the round of 32 or if they made a run to the Final Four. They have the team that can win. They can have a team that goes to the Final Four. They have good guard play. They have a lottery pick in Jabari Smith, and Walker Kessler's dominant pick. Might be Defensive Player of the Year. They have the squad to win, but the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they've shown that they're beatable. That's not how you want to in March.
Their big Achilles heel is they're very inconsistent for shooting at times, especially from outside the 3-point range.
That's Bruce Pearl. I mean, this is the Bruce Pearl team through and through, bro. Even the good one. They live and die on their shooting, and they're so inconsistent, and you can't trust them in a March game. Like, that's literally the same how I felt about Tennessee 10 years ago. It's crazy.
Yep.
But
I think this is a really good Auburn team, though, but they do have really big flaws, much bigger flaws than I think some of the other top, 1-2 seeds.
I agree.
But I like Jabari Smith Jr. a lot. I really do. I think Auburn's great if they can control the game. But if they get down early and they're going to have to start chucking up some shots, that's when Auburn gets in trouble.
Mm-hmm. All right, a couple quick things before we get to the bubble. Baylor or Texas Tech? Because I don't really like Texas Tech, and I kind of love Baylor.
See, I don't like Baylor that much.
Okay.
And I loved Baylor last year. I loved Baylor. I talked you into Baylor last year.
You did happy into Baylor. You convinced me. Made me some money.
It's just the size down low. Baylor's doesn't have the biggest size in the world. They got decent bigs, but nothing like these other elite
athletic
teams.
At least.
Yeah, they're athletic. And their guard play, man. You lose guys like Butler, Mitchell. It's going to hurt you. And we've seen that this year. Sometimes Baylor's offense can be really inconsistent. And just like Auburn, I'm putting them in the same category. If they can control the game, their defense, they're great defensively. They're a great defensive team, and they control the game. They can play the game at their pace. They want to play the slower pace. They will. They'll dominate the game. But if Baylor gets down early to one of these hot shooting teams, they're not going to come back like they would do last year. Even though last year, I don't think they have to come back at all. They were beating everyone by 20. But this year, this Baylor team, I think we've seen it in the regular season too. They get down a little bit early. It's a lot harder for them to claw back into a game than it is other teams. And that's my biggest reason why I don't love Baylor. But I don't love Texas Tech either. I like Texas Tech because they're a great defensive team, but they don't really have anyone who can take the game over. They rely on a very balanced offensive attack and a great help defense system. Texas Tech has it. They'll swarm you defensively. They really will. But another team, you get down a little bit early to one of these hot shooting teams, I don't know who I'm trusting to bring me back into the game.
Yeah. No, Texas Tech is definitely the top 5 defense in the nation, but you're right. They don't have anyone on offense that you can trust to bring you back into the game. I mean, I like both teams. I don't think, I don't have either of them going to the Final Four no matter what the bracket ends up being, but
Fair.
I could definitely see both of them in the Elite Eight. But I do like both teams, but if I had to pick one of them, I would pick Texas Tech over Baylor, just because of the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's teams, like I said, we couldn't fit enough teams on here. A lot of Big Ten and Big East action later on in the odds, though. We've got Iowa, Illinois, plus 4,000, plus 4,500 for Illinois. We got Houston, Arkansas, Texas. Texas, what is that called? I don't know. They're right next to each other. They're all right next to each other in the odds too. Then UConn, Wisconsin, Alabama, we mentioned earlier. Any of those teams do anything for you? I don't know. I like Illinois. I really, really do like Illinois' team. I thought they were going to win the Big Ten tournament, honestly. I still think they're a solid team. I don't know if they're a spectacular team anywhere, and that's kind of where they've fallen off. But any of those teams on the board, Troy, that you're like, maybe we're going to ride into the Elite Eight at least, something like that?
Arkansas.
Okay. Bus. You're locked in.
Arkansas. One of the hottest teams in the nation, but they have lost 2 of their past 3 games. It's not concerning, but they are one of the hotter teams going into this tournament. JD Notte is the second leading scorer in the SEC. I think they're. I want to say I looked at KenPom earlier, and their defense was ranked higher than their offense, but I thought their offense was a little more better than their defense this year.
I think Arkansas is one of those teams that has a good balance of offense and defense. And they're another team, too. I'm going to stress this. With these big crowds coming back, these are emotional games. Arkansas is a team that thrives. They thrive in the big games. They thrive in those emotional, close games when the crowd's into it. That's something I like. And their coach, Gus, he gets really into it, too. That team's just going to play up when it matters most. I do like Arkansas. I think that's a great pick. That's where I was going to go as well. Out of those, I'm trying to see if there's I do like Illinois. Kofi Cockburn is one of the best bigs in the country. He was potentially probably the best big coming into the year, and then these other bigs just kind of came out of nowhere. But Illinois, another very, very solid, balanced team, great offensively, great defensively. I'm looking down the list if there's any sleeper teams. Alabama's the biggest, head case, right? Because they can lose to some of the worst teams, but they also
Providence
have 8 Providence too. But Alabama 8 quad 1 wins. Yeah, they've also lost games that they shouldn't have been close to losing. They lost to Iona earlier this year. It's Alabama to me. I don't know if they can string together enough consistency to win, make a deep run. But what I will say is they're projected as a 7 or an 8 seed right now. If I'm a 1 or a 2 seed, that's the last team I want to see. That is the last team I want to see in that second round matchup because they've already beaten 1 seeds, 2 seeds, 3 seeds this year. Alabama's key wins. They beat Baylor. They beat Gonzaga. They've beaten Houston. They can beat the best of the best. They can also lose to the worst of the worst. I don't know if they'll make a deep run, but they're a team to watch out for as a potential bracket buster, I guess I'd call them.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah, the 1-8-2-7 games this year are going to be very competitive, like great basketball games. I'm very excited about that. All right, so before we get to the bubble, let's go around here. I have to ask the NBA question. Who's going to be the prospect? Jabari Smith, obviously, probably the guy that everybody's going to be talking about.
Yes.
Not consensus number one, but the current projected number one. But who's a guy that's going to be on everybody's radar after tournament's over, Steve?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious here. Ben Mathurin. This Arizona team is so much fun to watch. So that's a good thing, right? You're going to enjoy watching Arizona games. They're electric, they're exciting. But Mathurin is just unbelievable. He's got a lot of length. He can beat you off the ball. He can shoot. He can rebound. He can play defense as well. He's very good defensively. And I think he's improved so much from the start of this year to now. He's just raised his draft stock. It feels like 2-3 picks every single week. And it's only going to go higher, especially when you get people who don't watch college basketball as much, really just kind of tune in for the tournament. And they're going to watch this Arizona team and they're going to look at that guy and go, who's that? And I really, really like Mathurin a lot.
Okay.
That would be my pick. I could go Jaden Ivey as well. But I'm going to go with Mathurin because I think being on the West Coast too, not a lot of people watch him, right? They play it, they tip at like 11 p.m. So you don't see as many Arizona games as you do Purdue games or as you do Duke games. So I'll go with Mathurin. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Love it. What about you?
I would go with Ivy. I think would be Ivy.
Yeah. That's a great pick too.
I said
Dude,
earlier,
he's gonna do some crazy shit in the tournament. Like there's gonna be like 3 or 4 moments at least.
Absolutely.
You're just like,
he's gonna be that guy you see on every social media outlet post the same highlight for like 2 straight.
That'll be us. I'm posting this. I'm posting all the Jaden Ivey highlights.
He's gonna be that guy you see all the time from now until possibly the first weekend of April.
Yeah.
But I mean, the best thing that I love about the NBA prospects this year is this is like the first year we've had in a really long time where all the top prospects are on good college basketball teams.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I feel like every team has like one guy that you want to see like who's getting ready for the next level. Like at least every big team does. Every good.
And that's
team,
amazing for college basketball because I mean,
great.
What we have Edwards I was from Georgia. Like Georgia's not going.
They were like 17 and 15 or something that year.
Simmons went to LSU. Didn't make the tournament. But this year we have Chet Holmgren, Gonzaga.
We're just gonna bring him up.
Yeah,
Holmgren's another.
We haven't even mentioned his name. This is 40 minutes into a Selection Sunday pod. We didn't mention Chet Holmgren's name.
It's probably the most unique prospect we've seen in years. I mean, this guy's 7'2". He can play like a point guard. He can cross you over, break your ankles with ball handles. He can shoot, and his legs are about this skinny. They're tiny. They're tiny. He's just got to go to the weight room in the off season. But Chet Holmgren, in terms of basketball skills for a 7+ footer, I don't think we've seen a 7+ footer with that many basketball skills before. No. It's incredible, and we haven't even talked about it.
He's the wild card because if he's a gamer, like we don't know what he's made of yet because Gonzaga does not play. Like this is where the big games start happening. Like they run through their conference every year. Beginning of the season is not the same as now. Like is this dude? What kind of like dog does he have in him? That's really what I want to see about Chet, and like that's what I always want to see about Gonzaga in general. Then Suggs had it. Like we knew he had it last year. He willed them to victory, obviously, in different occasions. So I'm interested to see that about Chet Boy.
I will say maybe a little preview. If you watched his high school tape or the AAU stuff for Chet in those big games when he was going up against other top recruits, he was dominating them.
Okay, that's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear.
I think he's a big-time player. I don't know about the rest of this Gonzaga team. We'll find out. But I think Chet's going to take his game to another level and probably raise some eyebrows in March. Like, maybe Smith isn't the number one pick. Maybe we want to take this 7'2" kid and break my ankles and then pull up a 3 in my face, and then the other end just block anything down low. Maybe we just hope we feed him some McDonald's, gain 20 pounds. Because I'll tell you what, if that news comes out that Chet gained about 25, 30 pounds, I'm like, he should go 1. That's basically how I feel.
Just quick aside, if Chet or Jabari ends up on Detroit or Houston, it's just fucking terrifying with Cade or Jalen. That's all I'm thinking. Those 2 teams are bad, probably gonna have the top picks. Or even Oklahoma City with Shea. Either way, it's going to be ridiculous.
OKC would be a perfect spot for Chet. That would be the big, like the guy, the big they would need for OKC. I don't want to dive too much into these NBA teams.
No, we don't have to. Those are the 3 teams with the high picks, and all these. Yeah, exactly. Those 3 teams are the high picks, and all these guys kind of. I mean, at least the bigs all fit perfectly with them. It's going to be a fun draft season when that comes up too. All right, let's go to the bubble. Troy already has our bubble laid out for us, so we're gonna go right here. I don't see anything that I think jumps off the screen at me here. I don't. Xavier is definitely out in my mind. Fuck Xavier. They pissed me off so much.
They should be out. I'm done with Xavier. I wrote them off for next year after the way they lost the game. I told my buddies I had money on Xavier that game. They just the complete meltdown they had, and I go, you know what? I'm writing them off for next year. I'm done with them next year. I don't want to worry about them. I'm not letting them stress me out.
Yeah, I do think that the only way Xavier gets in is if Texas A&M gets absolutely demolished today. That'd be the only way. Even if there's still a bid stealer out there, Richmond, going to play Davidson today. Even if they win, I think it would take Texas A&M to get just destroyed for Xavier to even have.
You think Michigan's safe?
Both of you?
What I will say, I think Michigan and Indiana are both safe because they're going to want to put a big team in these first 4 playing games, right? They want to put a big team in the last 4 and playing game. I would not be surprised if we saw Michigan and Indiana separate games in the last 4 and playing games because they want to get ratings for those. Indiana, the run they were on, they've been electric. They're a super high potential team. That'd be a great get in terms of ratings there. And Michigan, the storyline, right, with the coach Juwan Howard, Michigan being a top 10 preseason team. Everyone thought this would be a sleeper team, maybe get to the Final Four. And now they're looking right on the bubble. I think Michigan and Indiana both get in. I think they're both probably in that last 4 in slot. And I think to your point, Troy, I think A&M gets in even if they lose to Tennessee, because even if you get beat up bad by Tennessee, I don't think it's a horrible loss. They beat Auburn. They beat Arkansas on back-to-back days, and they beat them up pretty good both games. It wasn't like, they got lucky in these games. They won those games convincingly. They're hot, and I know the committee usually in years past likes to put those hot teams in because they're exciting, they're fun to watch, ride the hot wave. I think A&M would get in for that reason.
Yeah,
I don't really have any complaints with your buys. I think a lot of people don't really know this San Fran team. San Fran's a good team. They haven't played the toughest schedule in the world, but San Fran is a good team. I think they're 22 in that, 24th in RPI. Their strength of schedule 16th. Like they have good metrics. I think San Fran gets in. A lot of people don't know of San Fran because once again, it's a West Coast team, mid-major team. Not many people watch them or follow them, but they're a solid team. And then Memphis, they're playing Houston later today. Memphis is another one of those teams that kind of played themselves into the tournament the past couple weeks.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Is there any? I'll ask you, Troy, because you are the bubble guy. Is there any teams that you would be kind of outraged if they were left out or put in, vice versa? Like, is there a bubble team that you're like, if they're left out, I'm pissed off? Because I feel like one happens every year where I get upset. I usually will do my whole, I'll seed all them what I think it is. And I usually get upset with one team per year. And then there's always seems to be a team left or a team that we always projected out. We've projected out for the last couple of weeks, and then they sneak into the tournament, and you're like, why is this team in here? And then that team wins the first 2 games, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Is there any team for either one for you?
I think if Rutgers doesn't make it in, that's going to be terrible.
Yes,
they should be in for sure.
it does worry me that all of their metrics say that they're not in the tournament. But I mean, they rattled off wins against Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Ohio State. They've beaten everyone in the Big Ten. I don't have a team that if they make it in, I don't know. I just think there is that fine line. I think I don't even think SMU has a shot. I think the only team that is out right now is Xavier that could possibly make it in. And yeah, I believe that if Texas A&M just gets walloped by like 30 to Tennessee, then maybe there is that chance. But if you look at the overall resume for Texas A&M and Xavier, I do think Xavier does have a little bit of a better resume. But Xavier has also lost 14 of their last 16 games. Yeah, and Texas A&M has won like 12 of their last 14, and I think that should be worth something. Mm-hmm. You're definitely going to give the hotter team, just the better hand.
I got one for you. I want your opinion on it because it's a team that wasn't even on my radar earlier this year, but it's a team that I think the committee could try to sneak in. It's Oklahoma. They're 40th in net ranking. I know they're 68th in RPI. They've played, I think
get out of here.
And I'm not saying I would put them in, but I think this is a team that I think the committee could sneak in. They've been playing good basketball lately, but the 4-12 quad ones, it's 16 quad one games, but 4-12 really sticks out to me as why I would keep them out. But I'm trying to look at teams because, like I said, I agree with this bubble picture. I think it's a really good bubble picture. But I'm trying to. I know that the committee does it every year. I know they're going to put in one team. It's usually from a major conference where you don't expect it. They pop them in, and you're like, why is this team and this team's not? And the team I'm terrified that they'll keep out, other than Rutgers, is Wyoming. And I think Wyoming deserves to be in.
That would be a travesty.
I've loved Wyoming from what I've watched this year. I think the Mountain West deserves 4 teams to get in this year. But Wyoming just kind of seems like that team where the committee's like, we'd rather put in a major school over Wyoming. Even though Wyoming's metrics are pretty solid, 4-5 in quad ones, 50th, not 25th RPI. And their strength of schedule, 84th, not great. But it's tough for me.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I try to differentiate the quad 1 and quad 2 wins. Oklahoma, we said they're 4-12 in quad 1, so they've had 16 chances in quad 1 team,
and they're 6-2 in quad 2. So overall, they're 10-14, which is still it's 24 games against quad 1 and quad 2. That's
above average competition, and they're not doing well. Yeah.
Wyoming, you said they're 4-5, so they've had only 9 games, and they have 4 wins, where it took Oklahoma 16 games to get 4 wins in quad 1. And
Wyoming 7-1 quad 2, so they're 11-6.
And Oklahoma, yes, they are playing a little bit better. I mean, Big 12 conference is the best conference in the nation. I don't want to say they're playing a little better competition because they are playing better competition. But Colorado State, Boise State, San Diego State, those aren't, they're tough competition.
No, good teams. Yeah, and that's why I think Wyoming deserves to get in. I think they've shown enough that they can handle good teams. Whether or not you believe Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State are truly good teams, they've shown it this year, and Wyoming has too. So,
yeah.
But I do think, though, to your point, I really do think that there is going to be a team that shocks us because there is every year. Maybe not a bunch of teams, but I think there's going to be 1 or 2. And I'm with you, Troy. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm the biggest Rutgers fan going into this selection Sunday. Just get in. I just want to see their name. I don't care who they're playing. I don't care if they're last 4 in. I don't care if they're last team in the tournament. Get that team in. What that program turnaround has done, the group of guys they've had for it seems 4 or 5 years now, they deserve one last run in the tournament, in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. No, and the only reason that they're even this close is because they had those bad losses earlier in the season.
Yes.
Right. The Lafayette, UMass, just terrible losses.
Terrible. Bad.
And that's literally the only reason they're on here.
Right. On the and that's the too. How much does the committee weigh early season to now? Because there's a lot of teams that are playing a lot better now than they were early on. And guess what, folks? The tournament happens in March, the end of the year. So all you do is try to cater towards the hot teams at the end of the season. even though there may be some glaring weaknesses early on, teams can get better as the years go on. Players can get better. So I'm hoping Rutgers gets in. I really am. But you're right, Troy. They have a couple horrible losses where the committee could use that as an excuse to keep them out.
Yep. Definitely.
They're a good chance for the what you're saying though with the major conferences. It's a big market. It's New Jersey. It's a base. They try to claim New York City. Like they'll get a lot of New York viewers and everything like that. So that's one of the things I think benefits Rutgers definitely. Here's my projections for the first 4 games. Let me see how you feel. I do agree with the Michigan and Indiana. I wasn't even thinking about it. I thought they might be safe, but honestly, that's a perfect team to throw in on the first 4 game because everybody's been watching them recently in Michigan, obviously with the hype before. So then I think Wyoming and San Francisco match up against either of the Big Ten teams. I think that's what they'll end up doing.
Those are some must-watch games then. Those are
fire games. And that's what I mean. Like San Francisco, you have them as safely in, Troy, but because they're such a good team and nobody knows who they are, the committee can just be like, oh, well, let's just put them in the first 4. It'll be a great game. Either it's a launching pad into their next game, they blow one of these Big Ten teams who has been inconsistent all year, or we just get a great basketball game because the Big Ten team shows up for it. I think that's the best formula for it.
No, I could definitely see San Francisco in the first 4. But their resume, they lost to Gonzaga 3 times. Or no, who'd they play in the West Coast Conference tournament?
They played Gonzaga, right? Yeah, they lost to Gonzaga.
Yeah, they lost them 3 times, lost to St. Mary's twice, and their best win outside of that is Santa Clara and like Oklahoma State. So I could see them putting them going in there, but the metrics say like they're 24th in KenPom, 22nd in net. They should be an 8-9 seed. And also when they played Gonzaga, like they didn't get torched. You know, they were competitive.
It was a good game the other night. Yeah.
It was exactly what you would see maybe in a 1 seed versus 8 or 9 seed game. So
I think San Fran passes the eye test, right? And a lot of people don't watch San Fran because they're not staying up to watch West Coast basketball at 11 at night. But San Fran, I think we've watched them enough, Troy, where they pass the eye test. Where like this is a good enough team to make the tournament. This is a good enough team that could win a couple games in the tournament. And I'll tell you what, if it's Michigan versus San Fran in that last 4 first round game, I can guarantee you every Joe Public out there is hammering Michigan. And watch out. The San Fran team can score. They can play basketball. You may not have heard of them, but they're a solid team.
The Dons.
The good old Dons.
The Dons.
All right. So before we wrap up, Troy, you first, Stevie, then you. Who is your Cinderella team? Who's the team that's making that you're just gonna send to the Final Four? Well, maybe not the Final Four, but who's your Cinderella team for this bracket? Or we don't know the bracket, but just
don't know the bracket yet. It's the popular pick, but it's got to be South Dakota State.
Yeah,
it's got to be them. I mean that they're definitely going to fall. I want to say I want to hope they're going to fall in the 5-12 game. I'll be in Buffalo for that, and Buffalo has 2 5-4 games. So
okay,
a 50-50 shot at seeing them.
Yeah.
But it's got to be them. That offense is amazing. They actually they had a pretty close game with North Dakota State on the Summit League Championship. But it's a championship game of a conference. Like, you want that close game. You definitely want that test right before you go in there. But that's the popular pick. But I mean it's got to be what I'm going with. There's definitely other teams, but I could definitely see South Dakota State winning a game or 2.
Love it.
Yeah.
What about
I'll give a sleeper for what I think is in terms of could make a run to like the Elite 8, probably not Final 4, and that's UAB. I love UAB, what they've been doing. They've been great offensive team. Yeah, good old Jelly. They can score the basketball. They play pretty good defense, and they have those elite guards, which I love to rely on in March. And then a team that could make some noise, maybe not make a deep run, but maybe win a couple games is the good old Vermont Catamounts. They were killing teams in the American East. They haven't played anyone, but they're still 52nd in that 49 RPI. Their strength of schedule is terrible because they're in the America East, but it doesn't matter. They weren't just winning games in the America East. They were killing them. Won every tournament game in the America East by 30-plus points. This is a team that can score the basketball. And this is a team that they play a very good switch defense. They're not afraid to switch on anyone. I really like this Vermont team. I think maybe they could sneak out a win here or there, especially if they get in a right matchup against a team that's not that great defensively. We have a lot of good Power 5 conference teams that just aren't great defenses, and we've seen it in previous years. Like last year with Ohio State, they can't play defense. They came up against a hot shooting team, Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts took them to overtime and won. Vermont, same type of team. Great offensive team. They can play defense, and they haven't really played anyone, which is concerning, but they've been killing these teams. They've been blowing them out. They have that confidence, that swagger that I like to see from these mid-major teams of, oh, yeah, we can beat anybody.
I love it. You guys both picked my top 2 picks, so thank you for doing that without knowing. South Dakota State, I've loved them for the last couple of years. I think they made the tournament a couple of years ago with the same type of team. Offensively, they just have a great system and they get great talent out there. I love that team. I do love Vermont. One of my favorite things to look for in a Cinderella, like lower, like teen seed type team is the teams that are like that. Like Akron doesn't fit in this, not just because they're Akron, but because it's 22-9, like something like that. Like Vermont is 28-5, like you said, like they've dominated everybody. And even though it's not good competition, the fact that you're just going in and out every game and you're taking care of business like that, that says a lot about just a team in general. 33 games is a long season. Like, and I mean, it's not like, it's not 82, like a professional season or anything, but 33 games, 2 games a week is a long season. It's a grind for these kids. So to be able to do that in any conference, I think is very impressive. So there's 3 teams that you guys didn't hit on that I like. So I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I got one more. I got one more.
Oh, go ahead, Stevie. Go. Yeah. Maybe it's one of them.
Sleeper team, Chattanooga. They have the Southern Conference Player of the Year, Malachi Smith. They have 8 guards, which I like to see. And Chattanooga's strength of their team is their defense. That has been their strength. That's how they won the Southern Conference. They hit that miraculous buzzer beater over Furman to get into the tournament. And sometimes that's all it takes, a little bit of magic, a little bit of confidence. And they have that star player you can rely on. Malachi Smith, he averaged 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists in the season, or this season. He's a guy who can take over a game. They got another good guard behind with Baptiste. I like Chattanooga because their strength is their defense, but they have those elite guards to where they could sneak out a win or 2, or they're going to be a tough out at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that. Here are the 3 that I've got here that I want you guys to consider. I did like Chattanooga over this last week. They were a very fun team to watch throughout. See, that's what I mean. Like all these, I'm looking at just Lenardi's like 12, 13, 11s, 14s. Like they're all teams that they were enjoyable to watch this week, and they look solid like all the way through. Like, all right. So Davidson, who is probably getting a bid regardless of the A10 result today. Yeah. Loyola, Chicago. I would be remiss to say that as a new Chicago resident, kind of have to throw Loyola in there. Yeah. And also the Princeton Tigers, who I fell in love with and always love my Ivy League schools coming out. So any of those 3 teams.
Princeton's probably not going to be in because Yale beat them.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're not in. Princeton. Oh, so this is the first timing thing that we're messed up here on.
Yeah. So no, that's fine. I mean,
I'm not in on Yale as I was on Princeton. So
no, I'm not either. Davidson, I'm not huge on. I don't know what it is about Davidson. They're a balanced team. They're a South team. When I watch them, I'm just not too impressed. And I'll tell you this right now. I'm making a marker here. I've learned my lesson on fading Loyola. As long as Sister Jean's around, as long as they've got this slow-paced, grind-you-down defensive system where they want to wait till 2 seconds left in the shot clock to make their read, make their shot, and then they make the open shots. That's the problem. They can shoot the ball. They just play so slow. You don't think they have a good offense. They're shooting like 49%. And then on the other end, their defense has been such a good defense, such a good system of defense for the past 5 or so years. I'm done fading them. I'm done saying, oh, they're going to fall off this year. Sister Jean's around. This defense is around. Loyola Chicago, I know they're going to be a chalky, popular upset pick, but there's a team that has to be on everyone's radar. They have to be. They've earned it at this point.
Yep. Speaking of fading, I bet on Davidson, I think 3 or 4 times this year. He's wrong on every single game. So
all right, I'm rolling with
So
that. Then
burned.
we're going with
So
Loyola, and we're fading Davidson and rolling with Loyola. Then that's what we've come to agreement here.
Yep.
All right, sounds good.
We're not fading
Sister
thoughts? Gina anymore. I've learned my lesson.
No,
we're done fading.
I can't do it. Can't do it.
And you're in Chicago now, Jake. You can't fade Loyola.
That's what I mean. Oh no, that's why I'm saying, dude. Like my first week here, we went out to eat somewhere, and they had like just a regular season Loyola game on in every TV in the bar. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, we're in this shit now.
Yeah,
and and the same thing it's the same thing with Illinois too. So don't get me wrong, but yeah, that's gonna be fun. Any other thoughts before we wrap? We're at our hour here. So any last thoughts going into Selection Sunday?
One more team. Yeah, I hope Rutgers gets in, and one more team that's dangerous. It's Memphis Tigers. Yeah. They can be a top 10 talented team. They're getting hot at the right time. They're playing Houston today. They've been dominating Houston so far this year. We'll see what they do in the championship. But Memphis is a team that if they get hot at the right time, they have the players. They have the actual talent level to give anyone a game. And they're projected right now at a 10 or 11 seed. I'll tell you what. I don't want any part of them in the first round.
You remember the Kentucky 8 seed that was still went to, what did they end up? They still ended up in like the Elite Eight of the Final Four, right? Or something like that. Yeah. That's what this Memphis team reminds me of. Like they have, this is a top whatever recruiting class that Penny brought in, and they just underachieved all year for one reason or another.
Yeah, that Kentucky team. That was the most messed up bracket because I want to say that title game was Kentucky and UConn, and Kentucky was 8 seed, and I want to say UConn was a 9 seed.
Yes,
I think they were 9 or 7. They were a low seed, and then you had poor Wichita State.
Right?
That was the year.
Yes.
Yeah. That was the year Wichita State had their incredible season. They were a 1 seed, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you get to play Kentucky second round." Like, how's that fair?
Dude,
how's that?
That is one of my favorites. One of my favorite tournament games ever, though. One of my favorite tournament games ever. It was amazing. You knew once the bracket came out, you're like, this is going to be great. Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. Wichita got screwed. It was terrible.
They had one of the best years ever. They're like, oh, yeah, here you go. Kentucky second round, 8 seed. Everyone knows it's the talent of a top 2 seed. They had a disappointing start to the year, 8 seed. There you go, second round Wichita.
We should expect this to happen because those are 2 instances that we've talked about now on this podcast today, where that game a couple years ago where they clearly just put Kentucky in there to match up to have a great Sunday afternoon, CBS, Jim Nantz on the call, all that good stuff. And it was the same thing with Illinois and Loyola that we talked about before. And right now on Lenardi's bracket, I'm just saying a potential 1-8 matchup is Kansas and Memphis, and that would definitely fit the bill for that game. And that game would be nutty.
Memphis is doing this with all Imani Bates. Imani Bates is the freshman coming in. God knows what the hell happened. He was like with his dad rehabbing or something. And he just hasn't been back, and they've been one of the better teams in the nation since he left. So,
and maybe that was part of the thing too.
Yeah,
Durant looks good. I mean, he looks like he's supposed to look right now. That's part of the reason that's a good call because they were impressive last night closing out SMU. Like that was a great game all the way through, but they really were just like, nah, like we're not going to mess around anymore.
If SMU won that game, my mind would have exploded with trying to figure out this bubble.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad your mind's still here.
Another example, Jake. You're talking about tough 8 seeds. Michigan State probably potential to be an 8 seed.
Oh, no one wants. Who wants to play Michigan State in the tournament? Nobody.
In the second round. Nobody. So you're telling me they're a potential 8 seed? I mean, North Carolina, a potential 8 or 9 as well.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
UNC.
1 seed.
Yeah. That's the thing they could do too is like a Kansas North Carolina 1-8 1-9 matchup.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sign me up.
Kansas is the 1 seed.
Sign me up.
Kansas is the 1 seed. Michigan State the 8 and North Carolina the 8-9. Imagine that. That would be brutal.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. There's no way there's not. It's perfectly set up. CBS is like, yes, give me all of that.
Yeah, right.
Oh man. I'm excited, guys. All right, so we'll be back on Wednesday probably with the whole bracket picks. We can actually have some time to look at it, see where we like the roads. Got a couple hours. It's gonna be fun. Thank you both so much. This is a great time. Follow, subscribe, all that stuff I've said this so many times. I'm not telling y'all where to subscribe anymore because you can figure you're listening somewhere. So you can do it. I have faith in you. So subscribe, follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1. Thank you, Stevie. Thank you, Troy. Have a great day, folks. Enjoy the games. Yeah, have a good week.